Hot on the heels of our first Galactic campaign, the Helldivers player base once again finds itself in a debate over the haves and the have-nots. Will we see a fast response and resolution, or will a majority issue be ignored? If you want to help support the channel, please hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell as we dive into the latest with Helldivers. Back on April 22nd, the team at Arrowhead made a fundamental change in the way the game would operate going forward, essentially saying that major order rewards would now only go to those logged in during that MO, finishing with, "This change is intended to better align reward distribution with active participation in each operation." This was a fundamental 180 from how the game had operated ever since its launch in February 2024, where essentially everyone got everything. Now, yes, there were a few exceptions, but essentially, if you were there or not, as long as you logged in within, say, a couple of months of when the event took place, the spoils of victory would be waiting for you as soon as you landed on your ship. And for the longest time, this system seemed to work just fine. April 29th, 2024, the Helldivers liberated 𝗵𝗃, and because of the choices to free that planet, players received the Airburst rocket launcher. A month earlier, players received the Quasar cannon and heavy machine gun, and at the time, players were busy slamming headlong into the automatons, and that extra firepower was needed. Sticking with March 2024, after the liberation of 𝗕𝗲𝗹𝗆𝗃 5, the Emancipator exosuit became available to all Helldiver players through the ship acquisition system, and, the list goes on and on. And so has been this course this game has always followed. It's always been a case of you were there, even though you may not have technically been there, and this system has worked fine. Whereas someone like me was there on Malevelon Creek, and I remember the chaos and carnage. So for me, when I put on the Fallen Hero's Vengeance cape, it carries extra meaning versus someone who may have been playing in that time but never stepped foot on that planet, or as a player, they joined a day or a week after that bloody battle. But pushing that all aside, with the way the developers set about making Helldivers 2, again, we got everything every time, and that system has worked flawlessly. However, it looks like that April 22nd shift, which largely flew under the radar, has now come full circle, and this time, players are noticing it. You see, for many, many players out there, they had already reached the max rank of 150. They had also maxed out all of their medals, samples, and rec slips, so win or lose, major order rewards and daily objectives meant nothing because as players, they received nothing. Now, I'm not throwing shade at players like that. Of course, there are a lot who take the business of winning major orders very, very seriously, but for those that put in the MO grind time, there was no incentive waiting at the finish line, save the small feeling of victory until a new major order arrived and it was time to do it all over again. But the common theme linking all of these past rewards, like capes and stratagems, was nobody really cared who got what and why. You see, Helldivers 2 has always been a game of communal experiences. Sure, there's been a few grumblings over the years about participation, but I was there when we liberated 𝗵𝗃 and we first got the Airburst rocket launcher, and players weren't drawing battle lines in the sand saying something like, "Only the players that did the diving should get the party popper," which, by the way, is what me and my squad call the Airburst launcher. Anyways, also, while we were fighting it out to earn the Emancipator mechs, I wasn't personally saying, "Ooh, I dare someone who turned down my LFG request to show up planetside with this shiny new mech suit because it's all mine." This let's just say it wasn't something anyone did, or to be honest, really cared about. FOMO is something we've seen in Helldivers before, even mentioned by the developers themselves, but this self-described studio version of FOMO is one that remained limited to events, and it definitely excluded loot.
One thing that I really appreciated with our game, one thing that I do really appreciate with our game, is that we lean a lot into what we like to call good FOMO, which is this. When we say good FOMO, what we mean is that we do want to have FOMO in the game, but not the kind of bad FOMO that we don't like as players, but rather the good FOMO that is you get to take part in and shape this pivotal moment in the Helldivers universe.
For instance, back when players were tasked with destroying the super colony on Meridia by deploying dark fluid vessels, that was a time-limited event. But for some players, those missions arrived and were then offline so fast, they actually never got to experience them. And since the game narrative had us evaporate Meridia immediately afterwards, those that missed it will never get to see those mission types again. The same could be said about the original TCS 1.0 missions, which are kind of now making a return, or even, say, the final assault on Cyberstand, which ended hours after it began. Point being, we've seen these examples of Helldivers FOMO, but these are mission types with unique objectives. However, this week that April 22nd clause about participation and MO rewards has now made a return, but this time it's not about a cosmetic cape, medals, or even a special limited time event, like say a surge. No, this time it's turned into a more polarizing discussion, one of many that Helldivers has seen these past 2 years. We've seen posts popping up between the Helldivers Discords and Reddits, like this one saying, "The amount of people defending the FOMO crap does not give me hope for this game's future." Or, just to keep this balanced, here's another one that says, "The FOMO drama is so funny," where they've used a pic from one of the Helldivers trailers along with the text, "Don't mess with us Helldivers 2 fans, we don't play the game." Pressing pause on all this discourse, the comments, and the back and forth and centering on the topic, this time, FOMO has touched an area of Helldivers 2 we've never yet seen. You see, in the past 2+ years, if you missed out on something, it may have been seeing action on a specific planet or mission, or maybe a cosmetic or medal payout, but this time, instead, it was a stratagem, specifically the Supply FRV. And this exclusion was made even more painful for some because of the confusion surrounding that April major order announcement and what we now have in the game, Galactic campaigns. You see, back when community manager 𝗵𝗎𝗔 made that announcement, Galactic campaigns did not exist. So the game was limited to just major orders. Also, those were limited to medal payouts. And as we've already touched on, many players had long since reached the medal cap of 250. So that announcement didn't matter to them. But here's the thing, now with Galactic campaigns, which are a series of major orders back to back to back, both sides are pointing back to that April announcement as confirmation that their side is right, while all the other opinions are wrong. On one front, you've got those defending Arrowhead's exclusions, saying that the announcement issued that warning ahead of time that if you did not log in during the active major order period, you weren't eligible to receive the rewards. In opposition to that party, you've got others saying that the original announcement only mentions major orders, not Galactic campaigns. So there might be a case to exclude players from, say, the medal payouts for each of those individual major orders inside a Galactic campaign, but to make exclusions from the end reward for winning the campaign is nowhere listed. And because of that, nobody should be excluded regardless if, as a player, they were logged on or not. This debate really kicked off into high gear a few days ago, and it's still ongoing. And even with the more recent announcements, it has led to more questions than answers. We've got this post that hit the official Discord on the 29th saying, "Due to your heroic efforts, the Supply FRV has been unlocked for all who participated in our first Galactic campaign." But listen to this next part. "For players who participated in any stage of the campaign, please allow time for the rollout to your inbox. If you did not participate, the vehicle will be available again at a later stage." Despite us now having access to the slick new Galactic campaign terminals, which, once fully operational and fleshed out, should prove to be a solid addition to the game, let's just say that their 1.0 versions have not been working up to par. Now, besides the known issues like it not working for PC players who play in DX11 or the noted UI bugs not showing the actual numbers of major orders left in the campaign, I would mention there's also a visible lack of feedback concerning what and who is due for the rewards. Even the more recent announcement could be considered vague posting. And at the moment, when the community needs absolute clarity, it looks like Arrowhead themselves are still working out how to bring about a reintroduction of the Supply FRV to those that were excluded. Sensing that something was off with what was happening in terms of player feedback and how that change had been implemented by the studio, I posted this poll to my channel yesterday asking, should the Supply FRV have been awarded to everyone or only to those that logged in during the campaign? A resounding 78% of over 15,000 votes said yes. Everyone should get the FRV. Very much aligning with what we've seen from Helldivers in the past, where everyone, everywhere gets the rewards, proving once again that this game is very much still a game with a one for all for one community. To many that responded to my poll, the solution to those excluded from the present FRV rewards seemed actually quite reasonable. Here's one that says, free to those who logged on, rec slips for those who didn't, so it's still available. Another says, here's a suggestion, people that participated, they get it unlocked for free. People that didn't, they have to unlock it like other strats, which I assume, if this is like it worked in the past, would be through the spending of rec slips at the ship's acquisition computer. Another spoke to the heart of the situation, saying, I don't mind them doing this for cosmetic stuff, the capes, but stratagems and weapons shouldn't be FOMO. And here's a response from the other side of this exclusivity argument, albeit it remains pretty reasonable, I think. I think the FRV should be limited at the moment, but I think there should be a clear release date for everyone. Hey, everyone who participates has exclusivity for a week before it goes global. It makes it special for the ones who do the work, kind of like a certain creek I keep hearing about. Now, besides the requirement to receive the reward, there's also been more than a few awkward glances at the wording of the requirement itself, specifically the part where it says that MO rewards will now be granted to players who logged in. And that logged in portion is what players have already exposed. Notice it doesn't say fought in the major order. There's no requirement that you take on, say, the faction that's actually involved with that major order. It just says logged in, meaning somewhere over the 3 weeks of the Galactic campaign, if you boot up your system, log into Helldivers 2, stand on your ship for a second or two, and then log back out, you're going to be eligible for whatever rewards the game would give you, assuming that major order or Galactic campaign was won. And I've got to ask this question, but is there really that much of a difference between somebody who doesn't log on and somebody who does log on for a second or two and then logs out? I don't know. Now, this has led to many questions, of course, from the community, and no official statement has been made by Arrowhead to clarify why we saw this shift to now requiring logons for rewards, but the safe bet is it has to do with DAUs, or daily active users, and trying to increase those as much as possible. However, running a quick Google search shows that despite that move to the logon requirements, player counts have continued to drop from April, sitting at averages back then of 35,000 with peaks hitting 83,000 to now in June, averages of 25,000 with peaks of 45,000. Again, just based on Steam charts. Personally, I've got a lot of thoughts on this topic, and I've read through many arguments made on both sides of the debate, but this resupply FRV reward, and now with the current Galactic campaign, we're seeing the Hyena Marksman Rifle. Again, both of these are stratagems. In the case of the FRV, it's a very powerful support strat, and locking players out of having access to these is something we've never seen in the game. Now, yeah, I support the idea of limited cosmetics like capes as a real way to show off I was there, and I'm all for that unique drip, but they are just that, cosmetics. When we venture into the area of limiting access to a weapon or stratagem based on a sketchy system of, hey, just log on, you don't have to play or even take on the MO, just log on, it's not enough of a basis to rewrite the code we've followed since the game went live back in 2024. We didn't realize what this change could amount to back when it went live, because when it did, again, it was limited to major order rewards, which was medals. But now we've progressed to Galactic campaigns, and that announcement didn't evolve with the game. So I can understand the confusion due to the ambiguity of that announced change. I also wanted to mention at this point in time, and as of the publishing of this video, no follow-up announcement clarifying the situation has been made by Arrowhead. But luckily, there were plenty of reasonable alternatives offered up in the comment section of that poll, such as making it available to those who did not get it immediately through the normal system we've always used in the past, the spending of rec slips at the ship computer. However, the vague post mentioning the vehicle will be available again at a later stage also leaves far too many questions lingering out there. Is this going to be a week? How about a month? Will it be a secondary reward offered up for a future campaign, or is it going to land in the same bucket as the promised return of the pre-order armors, which was made many, many months ago and has not been seen or heard from again? As I wrap this one up, I wanted to emphasize there's a really easy W and solution here for Arrowhead, and that's to place the Supply FRV immediately into the ship computer and to charge rec slips for it. It's a system we always used in the past. It's the one that was accepted by players, and it's still the best solution. That said, the old announcement now needs to be updated. And if they want to limit anything, maybe they can limit the rewards to the individual major order medals within that Galactic campaign. Because overall, for the health of the game, we need to look for ways to remove as many barriers as possible. Anyways, what are your thoughts on the FOMO situation, and what's your remedy to the exclusion announcement? Leave a comment. Let's get a discussion going. If you happen to like the video, please hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell. A massive thanks goes out to all of our hardcore channel members, for without your support, content like this would not be possible. Until the next one, this is 𝗲𝗲𝗹𝗶𝘀𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗏 signing off.